Today I want to be showing you Zoho Invoice. It's an awesome tool, great for beginners and for established companies alike. It allows you to create invoices, estimates, record your time by project and client, record your expenses, and much more. So let's go ahead and get started. To get started, we're going to go to zoho.com. That's www.zoho.com, and go ahead and create an account if you don't have one, or log in. And then you're going to scroll down and select Invoice. Now you'll notice there's a whole bunch of tools here. I'll cover other tools later if you guys want. And today we're going to be focusing on Invoice. So find that section and click on it to get logged in. As soon as you sign up, it's going to ask you to sign up or watch an overview video. You guys can watch that at your own leisure. We're going to go sign up for free. Alright, if this is your first Zoho product, it's going to ask you for some company information. Otherwise, let's just go ahead and access Zoho Invoice. And you're going to fill out some of your company information. So my company is Lunch Hour Web, and it's going to create a portal.invoice.zoho.com/portal/lunchhourweb. With a paid plan, you can map this to your own domain, so it can be invoice.lunchhourweb.com. Again, I make sure that in a future video, if you guys are interested, you can put in your company address if you want. Let's go ahead and select the country, your currency. There we go. Choose your time zone. And select whether or not your company is liable to collect sales tax. Before you click continue or save, you're going to upload your logo, and it's 240 pixels by 240 pixels. I'll go ahead and open that up here, upload my logo, and then I'm going to choose my default template. We'll do that before we save. So take a minute to look through the different invoice templates that you can choose. Take the time to select the one that you like the best. I'm going to go ahead and select this one down here, but of course you select whichever kind you want, and then select, and then save. Okay, so once it gets finished creating your account, you have this screen to get started with your Zoho Invoice. Again, go ahead and watch these videos or read through any help documents that they have on here. What I'm going to show you today is a high level of some of the most important features in the system. So we'll get started on the left hand side. You have your dashboard, which is going to show you how many invoices are out there, how many you have received, any expenses you have over here. And again, you can change your date range on the right hand side, as well as any projects. Again, right now, this is all showing 0 because we have just started our count. So first thing I want to show you is how to create a contact in the system. So this is going to be your customers. The free plan that we signed up for right now allows you to have 5 customers. There are paid plans which allow you to increase the number of customers, and you can look at those by clicking this upgrade button right here. So we're going to create a new contact, but you can have options to import your contacts from a spreadsheet or from Zoho's CRM, which is Customer Relationship Management Tool, and I can show you that in a future video if you're interested. So we'll click the Create New Contact, and we're going to put in the client's name. For this example, I'm using a gardening company. That means that maybe it's a lawn mowing, weed trimming, gardening, leaf raking, and that sort of service. This just going to be an example I'm using for this demonstration of how to use the product. Of course, you will want to customize it for however you need it. So let's say we have a customer and we're going to call him Bill Smith. He doesn't have a company name since we're business to consumer, but if you were, maybe you did have a company that you were doing yard work for, you could put that in here as well. Select the contact display name, email if you want, phone number, website. You can also select on currency, how you get paid for this customer, if you want to change it from US dollar to something else. Payment terms, whenever you give them an invoice, is it due right when they receive it? Is it due 30 days later, due end of the month, etc.? You can make those selections, changes on a per customer setting. You can add in social media stuff. You can add in address of the contact. You can add in contact names. So it's Bill Smith. Maybe you want to add his wife's name there since you can work with her as well. Any custom fields and any remarks. So let's say, for example, always knock on the door before beginning any yard work. And that's just a nice little comment you can add to his account. As soon as you create your contact, you can now create an invoice form. You'll notice that we're still on the contact screen. We have our client selected here. We can have different jobs for him, as you'll see here in just a minute when we create an invoice. You can also see over the past 6 months, year, 12 months, you put in your own date range, and you can see how many expenses and income payments that he has made to you. Expenses be your own expenses for this account. All this stuff is blank right now, but gives you a nice little overview of this customer. Again, you can add comments, you can sales, you can look at mails. This is where you have sent out emails to him, including invoices, and any statements that you have. These are invoices. Again, all of this stuff is blank right now, but you can add a transaction, you can add an invoice, you can add an estimate, you can add in other information, new transactions, expenses, and I'll get over that in just a minute. After we've looked at Bill Smith, I'm going to come over here to items. The next thing you want to fill out are your items. Now remember, we're a yard working firm, at least in this example. So maybe you have a service called mowing, and you can select a unit. So maybe this is done by square footage. Maybe this is done by time, hours. You can select that if you want. If you have a product, let's say you have garden edging. That's that little edging, could be stone or plastic or brick or whatever edging that goes around a garden. You can add that. Maybe you do that by the linear foot. You could add in your own, unit of measurement here. And then you can also put in the rate. So let's go ahead and let's say stone edging, $5 per linear foot. And your own description of what you want. You can add in these items. So I'm going to just add in garden edging, and let's just go ahead and add in a few more. Let's do an actual service this time, and we'll say mowing. And I'm not going to put in, let's just say we charge $20 per hour to mow. And we'll add in one more, and we'll call it weed trimming. And we'll again charge $20 per hour for trimming. So now that you've added, you can come in, you can add all your different items. These are what you will charge the client on when you create an invoice or an estimate. So we'll come over here to estimates and invoices, and we'll start with an invoice. So let's say you've already done work for Bill, and you now want to bill him for the work you've done. So you come over here to invoices, you can click the plus sign to create a new invoice, or you can just select invoice on the left-hand side to see existing invoices out there. Before you create your first invoice, it's going to have you set a few preferences. Let's say you give discounts, you can give them at an individual line item level, at invoice level. I'll leave it here at invoice level. And if you have any additional charges, shipping charges, adjustments, you can add them in here as well. Since I'm more of a lawn service, I'm probably not going to be shipping goods, so I'm probably not going to be adding any shipping charges. But again, you can add that at a later date. If you have salespeople and you want to include them, mark who is the sales rep or the salesperson on that invoice, you can add that here. I'm going to take that off. All right, so now we're going to create an invoice. So what we'll do is we'll select our customer from our list of contacts. So I'll select Bill Smith, and we'll start at invoice. If you want to seem like you're more established company, especially as you're starting out, you can change your invoice number. By clicking this settings tab right here, you can set that to whatever you want. So let's say you want to pretend that you've had a few clients before you create your first invoice. You can set it to automatically start at whatever invoice number you want. You can put an order number in here, it's not required, and then you can set your invoice date. I'll show you how to change that date format here in a few minutes. And then what you'll come down is set your due date. So maybe you want to do it in 30 days. And then you come in here and you can select your item details. So let's say we did mowing, and we did it for half hour of mowing a 20 rate, it's going to automatically calculate the amount. Let's say we did weed trimming for 15 minutes. Again, it's going to show the rate and the amount. And then that's all. Down here at the bottom, you're going to see your total discount charge and a per invoice discount if you want that here with your total. Down at the bottom, you can have customer notes, which you can modify at any time. And then you can also have terms and conditions here. And I'm going to show you how to change that on a default level in just a minute. You can attach files to it, and you can also accept online payments. By clicking accept online payments, it uses WePay, and you can sign up for the WePay service, or just click this blue link to learn more about WePay, read through their terms and services if you'd like to do. The cost is 2.75% plus 30 cents. So on here, a $15 invoice is going to cost you 30 cents plus 2.75%, which is going to be about $27.50. It's going to cost you about 80 cents total for this cost if you allow them to pay with a credit card online. I'm going to press no, cancel right now. I'm not going to worry about that, but that is something that's really nicely available, and it's also great for recurring invoices. If instead of doing a per job, let's say you have a contract with the client, I'm going to charge you $50 a month or $100 per month, and I'm going to mow your lawn every week. Well, instead of creating an invoice every week or even just once a month, you can create a recurring invoice, set it up with online bill pay, and then you'll get paid that automatically. You don't have to create invoices. You don't have to be tracking who has paid, who hasn't paid. Again, a little bit more complex than what I want to get into today, but it's another nice feature about Zoho Invoice, which you can definitely use for your clients. Once you're done creating your invoice, you can click Save as a Draft. If you need to make further edits, Save and Send. Save and Send allows you to send it through email to the client. Save and Share allows you to share it through different tools, maybe social media or something like that. Save and Send later, meaning that you're done modifying your invoice, but you don't want to send it yet. And then Save and Print allows you to obviously, of course, print it locally and give it to your client. So let's go choose Save and Send later. And now you'll notice that the invoice has been created. If you come back here to the Invoices tab, it's going to list all of your invoices that you have created. You do have options out here of which ones are in draft mode, which ones are paid, partially paid, overdue, and so on, but you can go there. And you can also come in here and modify your payment at any time. Once you're ready to give this invoice to the client, you come over here and you go Mark as Sent. Now this will be when you send the invoice yourself through postal mail, or maybe give it to the client. You can also send as snail mail. This allows Zoho to send it for you. Now you do have to purchase mail credits through Zoho, sort of like a stamps. You have to pay for Zoho to send it snail mail for you, but it's one of those really nice services, especially if you do work from home. You don't want to have to run out to the post office and mailing invoices and stuff like that. Sending through snail mail is something you can definitely do. You can share an invoice link. And this is going to be a link back to invoice.zoho.com/your custom site through Zoho. It will actually allow the client to log in, view all of their own invoices, pay if you have it set up through paying online, print out their own invoices, and so on. You could send them a link as you want, or once you're ready, you can mark it as sent, meaning you've given the invoice to your client yourself. You notice there are other ones down here. You can clone, you can void, mark it a recurring invoice, and so on. But for this example, we're just going to say it's sent. Now we marked it as sent. So now we show that our invoice has now been sent. And let's say the client paid. We're going to go and record payment next. And we say that we received $15, any charges if there were any, what date they paid it, how they paid it, maybe they paid it by check. We can put in the reference number, any notes, and then record your payment. And now we see that our invoice has been paid. So it has a nice little history right here of what happened and when, so you have full information about it. And then if you want, you can change it to see, oh, I only want to see unpaid invoices, no longer going to show on my left-hand side. If you only want to see paid invoices, it'll show up, be a full history of all your invoices here. When you come to your payments received, you'll now see that we have received one payment from Bill Smith for invoice 123. You can come in, we can see the exact invoice, amount paid, how it was paid, any notes associated with it, and so on. The next section I'd like to show you are expenses and timesheet. Now this is how you can create an invoice based on your own expenses or time spent. So instead of saying when you created your invoice, I spent a half hour mowing and 15 minutes weed trimming, you can instead record that time and then create an invoice off of that. So let's say you come in here and you're going to create a new project. Let's call it yard work. We can select it a customer. We'll have to select a customer. We can give it a description if we want, and then we'll say project hours right now. We can create an hourly rate here if you want. Let's go ahead and we'll set this up to, just to make it a little bit different than our earlier ones, we'll say $25 per hour. So let's add some task names. Let's say mowing, trimming. We'll do leaf raking, customer interaction. You can do whatever you want, and then you can mark which one of these tasks are billable and which tasks are not billable. So I've just added in a few different task names: mowing, trimming, leaf raking. Let's say driving, because you're going to the client site or back. And you can add to watch list on your dashboards. It just gives you a little dashboard template of stuff you can watch. So we'll go ahead and click save. Now what happens here, I have this project called yard work. It's for Bill Smith, but now I can come in here and you're going to log time. So let's say today's date, I'm going to do yard work and I'm going to do mowing. I can do time spent, or I can put in my start and end time. So I started at 12:37 p.m. 24-hour time zone, and I ended at 13:45. It's automatically going to calculate how much time was spent, whether or not that was billable, and then you can save. You also have a start timer down here. You could start it, although you're probably not going to have a computer doing yard work, but if you had a desk job, you could definitely start a timer and record your time that way. So you notice that it spent 1 hour, 8 minutes. You can add a new transaction or log more time. Again, let's say next we went to trimming. And again, you can put it in, let's just say we spent 27 instead of putting the begin and end times. All right, so now we have all this time that is spent mowing, trimming, and let's add one more. And we'll say driving. And we spent 12 minutes driving to and from the customer's house back to the office. Okay, you also notice that I have driving. I accidentally marked that as billable. Let's go ahead and change that back to unbillable. And then save. So you notice it's real easy to change your timesheet as you go along. So now we have all this time in here. You can view your expenses on here. You'll add them over here on the expenses side. You can also add in sales, which invoice or estimate you've given to the client, and then again, any comments for this particular project that you're working on. Let's go ahead and add real quick an expense to this project. And we're going to say this is automobile expense. There's a whole bunch of pre-configured expenses already in the system. You can change that as you need to. And let's just say we put in $37.76. And this was gas for work truck. You can upload your receipt. You can tie it to a customer or tie it to a project if you want. And you can mark it as billable or not billable. You can save it. If you are recording, let's go ahead and add a new expense as well. You can record mileage. You notice it has built-in mileage, but you can change it. You can edit and put the mileage rate in here as whatever you want, or add new mileage rates as needed by date. Let's go ahead and save it as a default. And when you're putting in mileage, you can put distance traveled or odometer reading. So you can say we ended up 65 to 41. So realizes your number of miles, what your expenses would have been. Again, you can mark that as billable or not billable to the client. Let's just go ahead and say we're going to bill the client for mileage. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense here for my company, but again, you understand, just to show you how this works. And then we'll save. Now that you've added a few expenses to your system, you come back to your timesheet, look at your project, and you can now see those expenses that we've just created for this particular project. Once we're done adding in all of our time spent on our timesheet, expenses, comments, whatever, we can go up here to new transaction and we can create an invoice. Let's go ahead and sort it all timesheet entries individually. Show item name. Let's go ahead and show the task name. And let's go ahead and show task description and description. You can include the unbilled expenses. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So that mileage that I just included, I want to include that on here. And now we've created an invoice based on the time we've spent. So this is really great. There is a smartphone app available, which you can download. And you could do this on the fly. You could drive to the client, type in your mileage as you're leaving. When you get to the client, you can start your timer, start mowing, end your timer, start your timer, start trimming, end your timer, drive back home, enter your ending mileage, add any expenses, and you can create your invoice really quickly as you're going along, as opposed to trying to remember later how much time you spent. It makes it a lot quicker and easier. So now we have our expense right here. Our invoice is automatically created for me. We have quantity, hours, rate, amount, totals, again, terms and conditions. We'll save and send. All right, so it's been created. You can send it via email to your client. They'll have their invoice number right here. They can view it online. That's going to bring them back to the site where they can log in. If you don't really want your clients logging into the system, you can instead just come back to your invoices. Over here is created a brand new invoice, invoice number 124. Just pick the next number incrementally in your invoice list. And you can send it a different way. Let's go ahead and mark it as sent. Great. So now we have all this information in here. You understand how to create an invoice, how to create items, how to create expenses, timesheets. There are reporting section. I'm not going to go over this with you. You guys can definitely review that when you have time. But I want to show you one last section, how to change some of your defaults. So if you don't really like the way your invoice looks, you can do that up here in this little settings gear icon in the upper right hand side. So let's go back to organization profile. We'll start there. You can change your organization name, you can change your industry, you can put in your own company address, especially if you're expecting people to send their payments back to you. You want to fill that in here. You can configure email, so it's going to be sent with message-service@sender.invoice.com. You can instead have that change to be sent from your email, especially if you have email hosting through Zoho already. Real easy to change. Change your time zone. Again, date format. I prefer dates being shown in this format. Let's go ahead and change it like that. Put in your company ID, your federal ID, tax ID if you want as well in here. It's going to show up on your invoices. Users and roles. I touched on this briefly before. This is where you can have different people in your organization log in. So if you have, again, a yard working company, but you have a couple people who do the yard work for you, you could give them access. They could log in. They can add their time to timesheets. They could add the expenses in for you automatically. That's not something that you would have to put in. You can just create the invoices later. For the free plan, there's only one login, but you can upgrade. The next section is preferences. I'm going to quickly jump through some of these preferences. General allows you to create estimates and timesheets. So if you're having a new prospect, you want to say, this is what it would cost. I'm going to give you an estimate what it's going to cost for me to mow your lawn. You can create one for them if they decide to pursue with your service, you can then change that estimate into an invoice automatically. There is rounding, so let's say instead of showing the exact time you spent, maybe you want to round it to the nearest 15 minutes. So if you spent 10 minutes mowing, it's going to round it up to 15 minutes. You can round it always up, always down, set the maximum number of hours per day you're going to be working. You can attach PDF, all these different options here. I'm not going to sit here and talk through every single option. You guys, of course, can look through that. I'm going to show you some of the ones that I find most useful. As far as branding goes, you can have your logo, you can change your portal settings, you can set up your custom domain. Again, this is where you can have it show invoice.yourdomain.com instead of invoice.zoho. And that does require a premium plan, so I'm not going to worry about that right now, but it is something you can do, especially if you're going to upgrade. Definitely go ahead and do the domain mapping. The next section I want to show you are the preferences for invoices, and this allows you to add your own terms and conditions and your own customer notes. So let's say, for example, you'd rather have something that you always want to appear on every invoice. You saw how you could edit that on a per invoice, but to set the default, you come to this screen right here over Preferences, Invoices. So maybe your terms and conditions, you want to say all payments due 30 days from date of invoice, make checks out to your company name or yourself, address listed in the invoice. And then you can also put in customer notes. I sincerely appreciate your business. Look forward to working with you again. You have any questions, please email me, blah, 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 blah. This is what's going to always appear now. You've set those defaults on all of your invoices going forward. You can do the same with estimates as well. So this is only an estimate. Estimates are good for 60 days. If that time has passed, please contact me for a new estimate. Expenses, this is where you can come and you can set your different expenses. So if you don't have automobile expenses or rent expenses, you can remove that from here. You can also add in new categories of expenses in here as well. Clicking on the vehicle name allows you to add vehicles. And then you can also add in some custom fields in here. If there's anything for expenses that you want to track, maybe you have certain equipment, lawnmowers, weed whackers, where you can track that sort of equipment as well. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you are the templates. This is the last section I want to show you. This is where we have the invoice templates. You selected one at the beginning, but you can make changes to how your invoice looks. Let's go ahead and click Edit. Now, I do suggest coming here before you create your first invoice because it allows you to really get the invoice looking exactly as you want before obviously you send anything to your clients. On the left-hand side is your navigation. You have your template properties. You can change your font and change your color theme, and you have the option to save or preview. I'm not going to change any of the template properties, but let's say you do have header logos. The system gives it a nice little different look and feel. You can change the color, you can change the title, font size, and all that information in here. Your own organizational address, so if you want to add in your organization company's address in, you can add that in here. And you can select which items show on here. So let's say we don't want reference field included. We can just remove that. It's going to remove this PO number right here. Just click the preview again to see how it updates once you've done making your changes. Item table, this allows you to change this section right here, the item and description. So if you don't want to call it item and description, you can change the number. If you are doing like based on hours as opposed to quantity, you can change that right in here. The rate you can include or not include. And then the next two sections are totals. So it's this section right here, the subtotal through balance due. Maybe you don't want to include the subtotal section. And then lastly is your footer. So you'll notice that you have your notes, your terms and conditions. Let's go ahead and remove the online payment options. Maybe we don't have that set up. Maybe we don't want to be using the online payment. We can remove that section here. Once you're done making all your changes, just go ahead and save. And then any new invoices that you create, it's going to look exactly as you want. So play around with that. Okay, so now the last section I want to show you are the reminders and automation. Reminders are how you can have the system do stuff for you automatically. So you can set a reminder for overdue invoices. Click on Edit, and it's going to say from. Maybe you want it coming from yourself. And you can change the subject. And it's going to say, Dear Customer Name. You might have missed payment. You can change exactly the wording. You can remove the online payment and then save. And this is going to automatically send on reminder 1, disabled. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Reminder 1 is going to email from myself. It's going to remind me. It's going to copy me, or maybe you want it to email the customer 1 day after the due date, the invoice due date. You can copy yourself, and then it's going to fill in all of this stuff right down here. Maybe you don't want to email the customer, maybe you rather email yourself. Just say, hey, you have this email due. It's going to fill in all the information, and maybe you want to make a call. So that's going to be invoice 1. Let's go ahead and enable it. If they still haven't paid after so many days, let's say after 30 days after the due date, we can send the customer a second reminder, maybe a little more strongly worded, and save. And then maybe a third email reminder. We'll just go ahead and edit. Again, we want to email the customer 90 days, and maybe this time you want to be saying, we will be reaching out to collections to receive payment, etc. You can have this automatically happen. What it's going to do, as long as on your contacts have an email, it's going to send those emails for you automatically. The last section I want to show you is automation. Do something automatically for you when another event occurs. Most common might be, I want to email myself whenever another user creates an invoice. So for example, let's say you have multiple users that log into the system. Whenever someone creates an invoice, you want to be notified that an invoice has been created. You can do that by using automation. So we'll click here to New Workflow Rule. And we'll say email on new invoice, give it a name, and we're going to go to the invoice section. You can do it on other ones as well. Email Paul self when new invoice is created. We'll click next. So we're just giving it a name. Next we'll say is when will this happen? Is it event based or date based? So we can say so many days after invoice date is due at a certain time, weekly, monthly, or we could do it on event based. So this one will say when an invoice is created, or we can do it created and edited or deleted. When the invoice date is greater than or equal to 1/1/2017. You can put in a date like that. So anytime an invoice is created after January 1st, 2017. And what you want to do is, let's say you want to email an alert, and you can create a new email alert. And let's just call this email owner. We'll have to create an email template. Email template is just saying what is the email going to say. And we'll just call this invoice created come from any address you want. And let's just say new invoice has been created. A new invoice has been created for, we'll insert a placeholder. We'll say the customer's name, amount, balance, due date, invoice date, created by organization user. So what this is going to say, new invoice has been created for the company in the amount of X, due date of when, and is created by the username. That's the username is for your own company's user, not your client or your customer's account. So we'll go ahead and we'll save this. All right, and we can select who we want to email. So I'll go ahead and select myself, email myself, copy other people on there as I want. So now whenever an email is created, it's going to send me an invoice. I'm sorry, whenever an invoice is created, it's going to send me an email. So we'll try that out real quickly. Create a new invoice, and I'm just going to put in Bill Smith. Just going to type in mowing for 1 hour. I'm not going to worry too much about it. This is a test. And we're going to save and send later. So I just created an invoice. It should email me as soon as that invoice has been created. So let's go ahead and jump back over to Zoho. We'll jump into Mail. And here we go. A new invoice is being for contact company name. I didn't put a company name in for this guy, but amount of $20, due date of 2/21, created by myself. So there you go. I got an email, happened right away. Of course, play with that, modify it as needed. So guys, that's it in a nutshell. I hope this has been a pretty exhaustive training on how to use Zoho Invoice, but it's a really great tool, and I really hope you find it useful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe and watch the other videos that I've created. If you have any suggestions on future videos, any service online that you would like to see, just let me know and I'll create some for you. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.